Hi everybody. Hi, I'm V. I'm currently in my bedroom. You may have noticed I have a turtle on my shoulder. This is my little bud. His name is Muckleberry. Muckleberry has been with me since 2012. Um, he's my dude. We both, some of you may already be aware, I was in an abusive relationship and all that sort of stuff. And this little dude has been with me through all of the tears and the happy moments and the bad moments. So I thought it would be appropriate, seeing as I'm here, that I would have him with me too. Yes, that is a piano in the background. No, I can't play it. And certainly can't play it anywhere near as well as Natalie, who's going to be coming on later. So I'm hoping everybody can hear me. My bit will be a wee bit redundant if you can't hear me. So can people let me know just before I get started if you can hear me? Anybody in the group chat, if you could let me know if you could hear me, that would be fabby. I don't want to get started, because if I get started and nobody can hear me, then yeah, you need to be able to hear me. So dance check peoples, can people let me know if you can hear me? Anybody give me a sign from God? Anyone? Wait, no, it's fine. I can. My husband's listening to me. I can hear it. Right, cool. We'll get started then. This is story time. Nails tap rhythmically against the sanded surface of the table. The action is a habit, and like all habits, it's difficult to break once it's begun. She is aware that the noise, while grounding for her, could be perceived as an irritation and nuisance to others. At her stage in life, though, she doesn't carry as much concern within her as she once did for the opinions of others. Skin is harder than it had once been, both on a physical and metaphorical level. She stares forward, peering through the dark, as the light of her soul, once dancing on a candle wick, now begins to flutter and grow closer to guttering. In her future, she does not see any others, although there have been plenty in her past. Will you stop that? The hiss comes from the left of her, and she pauses in her tapping, slowly turning her head to the side. She doesn't know this person, and as such she does not recognise that they hold any authority over her. Where once she would have been almost demure and ceased her tapping with a murmured apology, now she simply looks directly into their dark eyes. They're taken aback, and she sees their head jerk back a little, just the slightest motion acknowledging the intensity of her gaze. People don't like looking directly into another's eyes, and she'd always been told that the eyes were the windows into the soul, and some people's windows were wide open, with only tattered curtains fluttering in the gasping breeze. No, she responded, the singular word croaking from her throat, but still carrying enough strength of conviction that the person beside her, some small mouse-like woman with thick black glasses pressed against her face, seems taken back momentarily. The woman appeared ready to say something else in response, her mouth opening. A graceful arch of the eyebrow in reply, and she closes her mouth without another word. A hum of satisfaction, and she continues, each individual finger and her thumb rapping against the table. The clock is ticking above her head, and she can hear it in her ears as clearly as though it were a small watch on her wrist. She taps in time now, almost subconsciously adjusting with the tick of the clock. The clock ticks on, a reminder that time is always moving and fluid, and her nails tap as her body echoes the tick of the clock. Her heart beats, and although she cannot always hear it and feel it, she can do both now. She can hear the pulsing of her blood in her ears, and she can feel the thump of her weakened heart in her chest. Thump. A door opens, and the briefest tinkling of cutlery from a kitchen is heard before clearly fading. The aquarium directly opposite her bubbles away, and the fish swim sluggishly in the water, fins swaying as though they are hypnotized. Tap. The punch of a stapler against the receptionist's desk as she continues her work, organizing patient files and all manner of things. Tick. Clock. Thump. Heart. Tap. Withered old hands with nails kissed by paint. Tick. Mrs. Delaney? The voice is smooth and soft, the voice of a caring soul that believes in the notion of helping their fellow man. A noble notion, and she looks up in answer to her name being called. She knows her name, and she knows it well. She's carried it for most of her life. She stops tapping and rises to her feet, hand reaching out involuntarily in the hope that it will help her stand. The doctor makes a motion as though to help, but she shakes her head, and they stop, simply waiting for her. I'm not that far gone yet, Dr. Statham. Go on, I'll follow behind you. You can be assured of that. She smiles, but the smile is slight and causes a stretching of her cracked lips that's almost painful. She never did fare well in the colder winter months, no matter the age of her bones. The doctor turns and traces their own steps back to their office, and she follows behind them dutifully. She's been seeing the same doctor now for years, and she trusted him above any others in the medical profession. She feels the crunching and grinding in her hip as she progresses forward, one foot after the other, almost shuffling. She feels as brittle as the paint dried upon a canvas, but unlike the canvas, she cannot be restored to her former brilliance. Her breath catches in her throat, and she feels the scratching of a cough. She raises her hand to her mouth and allows the urge to overcome her, and she coughs, hacking and hoping that no phlegm would follow. She shuffles on, passing the doctor, who stands there inside the room, waiting for her, making sure he isn't any closer than he needs to be. The door is already open, and she moves forward, making a beeline for the cheap metal chair with a green sponged cushion hidden by multiple threads of wool stretched to protect a secret already exposed. She eases herself into the chair, a slight groan passing from parted lips as she settles in the seat. The door is closed softly, with only the slightest hint of a click, and the doctor takes a seat across from her. "How are we feeling today, Mrs. Delaney?" he asked in a pleasant manner. It was always rather pleasant, even when uttering the obligatory questions that could easily become stale in others' mouths. "Same as ever, falling apart and wishing the past 20 years hadn't happened, aren't we all, though?" A bubble of laughter sighed from her as the obligatory question was returned with a ritualistic answer. The doctor knew how to deal with this response, and he returned her laughter with a warm smile. "Have you been sleeping better since our last appointment?" He had a list of questions that he took her through every time she visited, and she had enough respect for him that she would answer without too much difficulty. He was only trying to help her, and when she was alone in this world, his help would be accepted simply because it had to be. "As well as can be expected." The answer was fairly closed, and she felt her guard rising to the occasion. "Have you been eating regularly? Drinking regularly?" "Yes." "Have you been getting out in your garden recently?" Further inquisitiveness, and her teeth clenched together as she steeled herself, trying to contain the impulsive answer of, "It's cold as buggery outside and there's a bloody pandemic, so what the hell do you think?" "I've gone out when I can, yes. Look, Dr. Statham, why don't we just get straight to the point?" She had the time to go through his questions the way he wanted, but she didn't quite have the patience to do it, not today. To her, every day was just another parade towards the inevitable, and she wanted to do the best that she could with the time she had. Sitting in the doctor's surgery and wasting away the seconds and minutes that were now as precious as quicksilver did not seem like a good use of her time. "I'm old, I'm doing the best I can with what I have, and things are getting harder and harder every day. I'm not ready for a care home, and I don't want any more tablets either. I've got enough medicine in my cabinets to dope up the entirety of the community centre dance class." She paused to take a breath and shake her head. She was getting on in the years, but she wasn't ready for a nursing home or for nursing of any kind. She was a proud woman. She'd lived through a lot, and she was not going to surrender her dignity any time before her heart stopped beating and her breath was stolen from her lungs. "I need to do this myself, Dr. Statham. I know you're only trying to help, but I'm a grown woman, and it's my head, my thoughts, and my ghosts. Just leave it as it is just now, and if I need any more help, I'll tell you. Now, how does that sound?" She clasped her hands together in her lap, resisting the urge to glance down at the weathered leather, the veins pale blue beneath the surface. "Mrs. Delaney, I appreciate your feelings on this, but I want to know that you'll come to me if it's too much, that you won't struggle alone. I'm your doctor. I'm here to ensure you receive the care that you need." There was an insistence in the undercurrent of his voice, and there was that unspoken phrase hovering in the air between them. "Not necessarily the care that you want." She could hear it, as though it had been whispered in her ear, and she nodded, acknowledging both what he had said and what he had not quite said. "Good. Well, if you don't mind me then, Dr. Statham, that's all for today. I need to move quickly, or I'm going to be late for afternoon tea with my next-door neighbour. We chat over the fence, you see." The lie stuck to her like melted caramel, but she smiled through it. There was a pause, and then he nodded, standing and heading for the door. Whether he believed her or not was another matter entirely, but she was content to be part of the charade so long as he let her pass. He opened the door and then stepped aside. Ah, social distancing. She barely glanced at him or at any of the others in the waiting room as she shuffled past. There was no afternoon tea for her, only a persistent pull at her heart guiding her back home. She would take the bus, and take it she did, barely paying attention to the small requirements of swiping bus pass and murmuring destination. She took her seat beside the window and stared out at the world passing by. There were dog walkers and cyclists and motor drivers of varying abilities, although less in number than before, thankfully. Each of them was living their own life as best as they could, and she wondered what it would be like to live a life like theirs. The age they were in now was far more technological than any other age had been before, the products of war now being relied on for the conduct of everyday existence. The scenery flashed past, and she noted with no small amount of sadness that the trees were disappearing, and they were being replaced by concrete architecture to house an overgrown population that were both thankless and thoughtless. The world was not the way it had once been, and she missed the greenery. A press of the red stop button, and within a few minutes she was off the bus and her home was right in front of her. The door waited for her, and she slid the key into the lock. With a quick flick of the wrist and then a shove, the door creaked open. She stepped through the doorway, and as her foot brushed the threshold, salty tears leaked from her eyes. The door was closed definitely behind her, and she watched her own reflection staring back at her from the hallway mirror. Her eyes were as bright as they had ever been, but the skin of her face sagged all around, a landscape of grooves and lines that carried a militant severity. Her hand snaked upwards, pressing against the glass as she watched her reflection, and she began to dream. She dreamed her face was smooth skin of strawberries and cream, that her hair was full and curled, grizzled grey traded for glowing copper. She dreamed that her husband was in the bedroom reading bedtime stories to their beautiful girls, and as she dreamed, she wished with all of her heart that she would find her way to them in heaven when the time was right. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of the show. Bye.